After my husband said I was too old, his younger lover met my divorce lawyer. Drama ensued. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. Face it, Julia, you're too old for the life I want. He said it to my reflection, not to my face, while he adjusted a tie he bought with a card I pay. I'm Julia, 47, the quiet woman who keeps a school clinic running. Shots logged, meds counted, parents called, crises triaged, gossip ignored. My work is small only to people who have never watched a child stop shaking because a steady voice knew what to do. I stand on floors waxed by other quiet people and fix things you don't see breaking. Tonight the thing breaking was my marriage. Mark, my husband, is 50 and glossy. He loves mirrors, new restaurants, and any sentence with his name in it. He'd invited me to a charity gala, then said I'd make it feel parental, as if warmth were a sin. I took off my lipstick like armor that wasn't working. Then go alone, I said. He shrugged, pleased like a man freed from empathy. My pension, the house, and whatever softness I've preserved after 2 decades, those are the stakes. When he left, the door's soft click felt like a countdown I hadn't started. I rinsed plates we didn't need dirty and wiped a counter already clean. On autopilot, I did what I do at work. Collect, label, contain. I pulled bank apps, scrolled past our usual bills, and found deposits that weren't ours and payments at a boutique hotel that definitely wasn't ours. Venmo notes with breezy lies, team dinner, consult, reimbursement, hit heart emojis I recognized from his smug texts. I screen captured quietly and sent the files to a new folder named after. I breathed in, held, and breathed out like I teach kids with panic. At 9:12 p.m., my phone buzzed with a bank alert. New safe deposit access authorized. I hadn't authorized anything. The branch was the one near the boutique hotel with the scent of cedar in the lobby. Too old, he'd said, and immediately picked up a key. I called a divorce lawyer in the morning because my body moved before my fear caught up. When people ask how marriages disappear, I think about birthdays that become errands and apologies that become scripts. For our 20th, Mark gave me a blender and took a photo of himself, surprising me with it. Later he posted, keeping her healthy for many more, to an audience that doesn't know I hate smoothies and love used bookstores. This year I asked for a weekend at the lake. He bought 2 tickets to a rooftop bar and a dress an inch shorter than dignity. Age is just a number, he said, counting mine in public, and didn't notice me step back from the camera. I met Ruth Monroe, my lawyer, in a room with plants that cannot be killed. Her handshake was brisk. Her nails were plain. Her eyes were the kind that file things in the right drawer. I don't want to scorch earth, I told her. I want my life back without begging for pieces. She asked about accounts. I slid my phone across. Zelle, Venmo, card statements, and 3 hotel folios, same boutique, different dates. Memo lines matter, she said. Judges love receipts. So do juries and bullies who realize they're not alone anymore. Why do bullies love receipts? I asked. Because control becomes arithmetic, she said. Control hates arithmetic. She explained commingling, when marital and separate property get shaken into a drink that looks like one thing but contains 2. She explained postnups and prenups, contracts that mean something until someone forges a signature. I showed her a scan Mark had pushed at me months ago after a fight about a small business loan. My signature looked like a version of me who writes with her left hand underwater. We'll get a forensic opinion, she said. Also, your husband uses the word consult like a band-aid. I told Ruth I worked in a school clinic and had never called a lawyer for anything more than a field trip waiver question. You've been doing triage for years, she said. Now we do it for you. She outlined first steps. Freeze joint lines of credit, move my paycheck to a new account, document everything, speak only through counsel, stop explaining myself to people who benefit from me being nice. It felt like opening a window in a room where I'd trained myself not to cough. Then Ruth said a sentence that should have felt stranger than it did. Your husband's girlfriend just called for a consult 15 minutes ago. Her name was Ava, and she gave her age before her problem like a med form, 27. In a complicated situation, worried the gifts he promised were suddenly loans, terrified of being left with nothing but screenshots. Ruth's intake assistant had heard enough to flag a conflict, then asked for my permission to listen without advising. I nodded. If she's going to talk, I want to hear what she thinks is real, I said. Reality can stand sunlight. Lies ask for dimmer switches. At the school clinic, I kept my face steady while a fourth grader told me his head hurt because his mother's boyfriend drank loud. I measured Tylenol and wrote a note and meant every word of "you did the right thing" telling me. Adults forget kids notice the difference between pain and theater. I went home through aisles of tulips that won't survive the week and bought none. On the porch, a package waited. Lace, not mine. Ruth called at 6. Ava thinks she's owed what he promised, she said. She also thinks he's moving money into a safe deposit box with cash withdrawals that aren't traceable because he watches podcasts. I almost laughed. Men like Mark believe ATMs aren't ink. Ava says the boutique hotel reserved a lover's package under a company card, Ruth added. I'll need proof. We'll get the ledger. For the record, I said, he told me I'm too old for his life. For the record, Ruth said, he's too careless for yours. At 9:50 p.m. Venmo chimed. Mark sent $400 to Ava L. with a memo, consult. I filmed the screen as it glowed, the way I film procedures to train our subs. I scrolled further back, consult, 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 and one emergency, $1. 100 on the night he told me he was working late. Hotel receipts bracketed those dates like quotation marks. Later, as I brushed my teeth, he texted a photo from a bar view high above clean streets. Thinking of you, he wrote. The angle did not include a second glass, which is how you know there was one. My mirror face looked like a woman who knows the names of every teacher aide's kids and the alarm code for every medicine cabinet, and who will not let the word old be a lock. I plugged my phone in and watched the safe deposit alert blink again. He had no idea I'd already copied the key number from his wallet. Public humiliation works on people who fear public more than humiliation. Mark excels at using crowds to prime shame. At the charity gala, because yes, I went, he joked to our table that motherhood had simplified my fashion sense, as if cardigans and flats were crimes against art. The woman across from me laughed too quickly. Her eyes darted to my left hand, where a simple band sat like a quiet witness. I excused myself before dessert and took photos of the centerpiece because you can look busy and be done. On the way home, sitting in traffic, my phone buzzed 3 times. 2 were card notifications, boutique hotel, oversized bouquet. The third was a bank email, safe deposit box assigned. Co-renter added. The name was his business partner's. Useful for cover, less useful under oath. I took a picture of the email. Screenshots feel aggressive until you realize they are just mirrors hung in better light. That dress ages you, he said at a red light, as if he were a stylist and not a man who doesn't know how laundry works. Try something youthful next time. I'm not the one who needs to try youth, I said, and let the silence sit until it cooled. At home, he showered while I opened our home office drawer and slid out his leather card holder. I've listened to enough custody arguments in nurse meetings to know a wallet is a diary with fancier paper. The safe deposit key was there, and I pressed its number into clay from my art drawer like a child making a fossil. I returned it exactly as I found it because neatness is camouflage. The next morning, Ruth emailed a stipulation letter. No asset transfers. No new debt. No withdrawal beyond normal living. Send it, I told her. She did, and Mark called in minutes. Voice smooth with outrage that I had made our marriage litigious. It's just a draft, he said, as if drafts don't become wins. Stop moving money, I said. Stop pretending love is a tax shelter. He hung up. 10 minutes later, the boutique hotel charged breakfast to our card. I made an appointment at the bank and met Priya, a manager who wore her hair like decisions. Priya's office smelled like paper that has already won. I handed her the email and my ID. I'm a joint owner on our accounts, I said. I'm also a nurse-adjacent person who keeps records. I need the access log for safe deposit boxes rented under my husband's name. She nodded like a person who has escorted many women through rooms their husbands think are private. We can't open without both renters, she said. But we can print logs. She slid across a sheet. Dates, times, signatures. Tuesday lunch, Thursday evening, Saturday morning, like a devotional. I asked about ATM withdrawals. She printed those too. I asked about cashier's checks. She printed with a satisfying hum. Do you need a bottle of water? She asked gently, The way I do in my clinic when a parent receives a diagnosis that doesn't end a day but changes a calendar. I said yes and swallowed half of it because swallowing had become a job. Ruth looped in Diego Park, a forensic accountant with the cheer of a man who loves columns. Think of money like footprints on a tile floor, he said. People believe socks hide them. They just make them clearer. He color-coded the hotel charges, marked Venmo memos, and drew lines from the business account to consults, with Ava that violated every rule of separate property. He's either dumb or arrogant, Diego said. Either way, arithmetic is available. That night, Mark insisted we attend dinner with his business partner and the partner's wife. The wife wore pity like an expensive scarf. You must be exhausted, she said sweetly. Keeping up. I keep children alive, I said. That's enough cardio. Mark squeezed my knee under the table like he owned it. I counted to 5 and removed his hand, then asked the partner about the weather the way you talk to a dog at a thunderstorm. After we got home, he tried to be kind with a generosity he hadn't earned. We can be civilized, he said. Don't lawyer up just because you're scared of being alone. I'm scared of being lied to forever, I said. I'll risk quiet. He slept sound. I didn't. At 3:02 a.m., a Venmo alert blinked. Emergency. I added it to the folder named after and changed the folder name to now. In the morning, Ruth sent 3 words that hit like a siren and a lifeline at once. Ava booked consult. Conflict check passed. Ava wants advice about keeping gifts, Ruth said, voice calm as a waiting room. I won't advise her because of you, but I can listen with your permission and document. My permission was a door opened. Ask her what memos Mark uses, I said. Ask where he keeps loans. Ask if he promised to make her whole if I acted crazy. Ruth hummed, pen moving. You've heard speeches, she said. You know the scripts. Ava came at 2 wearing courage and a sweater too thin for February. She thought she was ready for a chess match. She brought checkers. When Ruth explained the conflict, Ava floated between offense and relief. He said you were vindictive, she said. He said you'd take everything and leave him bankrupt. I smiled in that quiet way school nurses practice, so kids will tell the next truth. What did he promise you exactly? I asked, and let the silence hold its bowl out. A studio, she said. A marketing budget. He said investor. He said partner. He said I'd have security. Her voice didn't wobble until the last word. He said you were too old to understand. Ruth asked about gifts. Ava listed handbags, flights, a dental veneer, and help with taxes. Did you sign anything? Ruth asked. Ava pulled out a glossy folder with a loan acknowledgement, using our company letterhead. Diego would later note the font didn't exist the year the company registered. He said this protects me, Ava whispered. He said everything is above board. Everything is above someone's board, I thought. Ruth explained commingling without jargon. Separate gifts become marital questions when they use marital funds. Loans aren't loans if they're pretend and designed to evaporate. I don't want to ruin his life, Ava said. I just don't want to be ruined. I believed her. Abusers teach accomplices to fear the greater monster. When Ava left, Ruth exhaled. She'll either help us or help him, she said. But either way, she's a witness now. That evening, Mark showed up with lilies-like apologies and a speech polished by mirrors. Let's be adults, he said. Let's split clean and quiet. You keep the house. I keep my business. We don't embarrass each other. He handed me a document he called a simple postnup tweak. The signature looked like mine if my hand were drunk and my heart were asleep. He leaned in, stage whisper warm. Sign it, and I'll make sure you never worry. I set the paper down and called Ruth on speaker. Mark's smile faltered when he realized the room had changed shape. Julia won't sign anything today, Ruth said, voice crisp enough to fold steel. Please direct all communication to me. Mark laughed into the phone like a man who believes women are an audience. Is this necessary? He asked. We can be decent. Decency starts with truth, Ruth replied. And the truth is we need sworn disclosures. He hung up. 5 minutes later, an email arrived accusing me of weaponizing legalities and threatening his reputation. The CC list included his business partner and 2 couples who prefer holidays to honesty. I forwarded it to Ruth without replying. At work, I teach kids not to feed stray dogs that bite. At home, I'm learning not to feed narratives that bite back twice. Diego sent a chart that looked like a subway map for secrets. Hotel folios, Venmo memos. ATM pulls near the safe deposit branch. Charges at a jewelry store I hadn't visited. He labeled one cluster Ava Path and another Shadow Bills. He's paying utilities on a unit that isn't your house, Diego said. Lease? Storage? Mistress Nest? His cursor circled a landlord name. Ruth scheduled a subpoena. My stomach scheduled an ache. At my clinic, I taught a 6th grader to breathe through a nosebleed and remembered there are problems solved by pressure and time and ones that need stitching now. Ruth texted, mediation scheduled Friday. They want amicable. We'll bring arithmetic. I packed my folder, memos, logs, photographs, and the forged postnup, all in sleeves, all labeled in the handwriting I use on vaccine cards and condolence notes. That night, Mark tried charm. We could still be friends, he said. You could even help manage the transition. You're so good with details. I am, I said. That's why this ends different than you planned. He reached for my hand. I let him touch air. At 11:17 p.m., a notification blinked from the bank. Safe deposit access again. I watched the timestamp like a meteor and whispered the kinds of prayers atheists pray when they mean, let the file print. Ava texted Ruth at midnight. He says I don't need your help anymore. Mediation day was a hotel conference room parading as diplomacy. Water pitchers sweated like first-year associates. A box of mints stood between teams like a ceasefire. Mark arrived in a suit I'd chosen 2 promotions ago. Carlos, his lawyer, arrived in a tie that said cheerful while his eyes said invoice. Ruth placed our binder on the table like a small, reasonable mountain. Diego joined by video, the glow of spreadsheets making him a priest of math. Mediators love stories that end in signatures. Mark began his with charm. We've grown apart, he said. We want to handle this like adults. Adults don't forge signatures, Ruth said, not smiling. She slid the alleged postnup under a camera. Our forensic review says this is not Julia's hand, she added. Also, commingled funds, mischaracterized gifts, and a safe deposit pattern suggest intentional concealment. Carlos inhaled. Let's keep this constructive, he said. My client is prepared to be generous. Generosity arrives after confession, Ruth replied. Start with disclosure. We walk through the map. Venmo consults, branded with heart emojis. Hotel folios where room service included 2 breakfasts and an extra robe. ATM withdrawals that married themselves to boutique florist bills like vows. Diego narrated the story money tells when men forget they're not poets. This is not romance, he said. This is payroll without HR. Then the door opened, and Ava stepped in. She looked younger than 27 and older than promises. Carlos stiffened. Mark blinked slow. Why is she here, he asked. Because she asked for counsel, Ruth said. Because she is a witness to facts. Ava sat and placed her glossy folder between the mints and the lies. He told me loans, she said. He told me investor. He told me she was cruel. I don't think she's cruel. She pushed forward the loan with our company letterhead. Diego enlarged the font metadata like a magician revealing the card in your sleeve. Mark tried anger next. You both want to destroy me, he said, voice cracking on me as if the word were a wire. No, I said. We want the truth to speak before you do. The mediator cleared his throat like a man stuck between weather systems. Carlos asked for a break, just as Priya emailed us a fresh log from the safe deposit box. Ruth's thumb landed on Priya's email like a gavel. Fresh access logs, she said, sliding her laptop toward me. He visited the safe deposit box this morning at 7:06. Diego whistled softly over video. Weekend hour entry, consistent with concealment behavior, he said. Translated, men who hide favors dawn. We need a plan that's arithmetic plus theater, Ruth added. Theater is not my habitat, but triage is. We built a checklist. 1. File a temporary restraining order on asset transfers. 2. Subpoena the bank camera footage for vault access. 3. Pull hotel CCTV stills. 4. Secure a forensic opinion on the postnup signature and the notary stamp. 5. Invite Ava to a document verification session, with disclosures pre-numbered and bound. The binder should look inevitable, Ruth said. Bullies read inevitability like a stop sign. I printed screenshots of Venmo with his consult, hearts, and taped them to a timeline with hotel folios. Diego stacked ATM withdrawals against florist bills and drew arrows that even a romantic could follow. I wrote captions in the same careful hand I use for medication charts. Date, time, amount, location, meaning. Commingling explained in 10 words sharp enough to pierce a defense. In my clinic, I teach children to breathe through bleeding. Here, breath was paper and the clotting agent was proof. Ruth rehearsed lines for the mediator. "We're here for disclosure and an enforceable plan," she said. "No hush, no postnup tweak, no veiled threats." I practiced my own. "I'm not too old. I'm too accurate for your story." It felt like a vaccine, small sting, big protection. Diego proposed an exhibit for the safe deposit pattern labeled with calm numbers instead of rage. "If he panics, he'll overreach," Diego said. "Overreach is our friend." At home, Mark paced the kitchen with restless charm. "We don't have to punish each other," he said. "Think of your reputation." I thought of the children whose parents I call with bad news and how strange it would be to call myself, to say gently, "Mrs. Morris, we're going to need you to tell the truth now." I put the kettle on because heat steadies hands. Ava texted Ruth at 10. "I'll come. I need to be done with this." Ruth replied with the time and a warning. "Bring everything. No shredding. No apologies needed." I set out pins and tabs like place settings for a reckoning. Priya's next message arrived with 6 words that tightened the room like a bandage. "Camera shows a bag," Priya wrote. "Handed off inside vault corridor." The still attached was gray and grainy and obvious. Mark accepted a small black duffel from his business partner, then signed the log with a flourish that made my stomach lift. Ruth's jaw set. "He's staging cash," she said, "or documents he thinks are above arithmetic." We pushed our meeting forward. "Bring a witness," Ruth added. "Bullies behave better with audiences." I called my sister and asked her to sit in the lobby, quiet and warm. She said yes without advice, which is what yes should sound like when you're tired. That evening, Mark insisted on one last civilized dinner. He booked the booth where we used to pretend the world ended at candlelight and asked the server for something youthful for me. "Water," I said, "and the check." He laughed, then leaned forward. "If you make this ugly," he said softly, "I will make you small." He listed my job, my age, my silence. He promised respectable poverty if I forgot my place. "I'm not poor," I said very evenly. "I'm accurate." Back home, he laid out another draft. Clean lines, gentle fonts, fake mercy. A notary stamp squatted in the corner like a toad. The name made my skin prickle. "The notary died last spring." I brought a casserole to her husband. "You forged a dead woman," I said. He blinked. "It's an old stamp," he said. "No one checks." I checked. I photographed the obituary's date and put it under the stamp like a finger under a pulse. Ruth called. "Do not engage alone," she said. "Eat, shower, sleep if you can. Tomorrow, we honor the plan." My clinic brain made lists inside sleep. Bring IDs, logins, tabs, phones, chargers, water. Wear the cardigan that says reliable, not negotiable. I dreamed of empty rooms where truth waited like a nervous grandparent. In the morning, Mark texted, "Be kind," with a heart he uses to narrate harm. I turned my ringer off and packed the binder. My sister put coffee in my hand like a small prayer you can drink. At the elevator, I met my reflection and didn't look away first. The document verification session looked like church and surgery had a child. Long table, soft carpet, projector humming, a bowl of mints that would outlive us all. Carlos arrived first with performative sighs. Mark arrived last with a smile, tuned to charm juries. Ava sat opposite me, hands folded, glossy folder ready, mascara steady. Ruth nodded to Diego on the screen. "We'll proceed in 3 chapters," she said. "Commingling, postnup, vault." The mediator adjusted his pen like a metronome. Chapter 1. Diego enlarged the Venmo strings, hearts and consults stacked beside florist receipts and hotel folios. He built bridges with dates and station stops with ATM withdrawals. "This movement uses the business account," he said. "Commingling makes these transactions subject to marital accounting." Carlos cleared his throat. Mark rolled his shoulders. Ava looked at her hands as if she'd only now noticed veins. Chapter 2. Ruth projected the postnup draft with my fake signature, then the notary stamp. "Notary deceased at time of purported witnessing," she said. She placed the obituary on the Elmo camera like a lily on a casket. We'll seek a forensic opinion and sanctions for attempted fraud. Carlos reached for civility. We're all overwhelmed, he offered. Mistakes happen. Mistakes don't resurrect notaries, Ruth said. Chapter 3. Vault. Priya's log. The camera still. The duffel. Cash movables or documents, Ruth said. Either belongs in disclosure. Mark tried to smile around a new shape in the room and failed. I have valuable memorabilia, he said. Sentimental things. Diego zoomed on the partner's handoff. Sentiment doesn't require a handoff, he said. Ava lifted her folder. He told me the box protected me, she said. He said if Julio went crazy, he could keep us separate. Her voice didn't break, and that was braver than tears. Ruth nodded with the kind of kindness that makes space without letting lies sit down. Thank you, she said. Truth helps everyone here. The mediator asked for a recess. Mark stood and leaned toward me with a whisper that had shaped my 20s and paid for my 30s. Sign something, he said, or I will light your life on fire slowly. Ruth put a hand on my sleeve and asked if I was ready to show the recording. Ava pressed play on her phone. The audio quality was kitchen table, ice clink, cabinet thump, a laugh that wasn't mine. Mark's voice. If she pushes, I'll make the loans disappear and say you repaid with content. No one prosecutes pretty. Ava's voice, brittle. What about her retirement? Mark again, lazy. She'll get a condo and a library card. The room rearranged itself. Even the mints stopped matching. Ruth slid in the forensic letter. Preliminary, cautious, devastating. This signature is highly unlikely to be MS. Morris's, it read. She added a short affidavit from Priya. Handoff observed on security footage. Diego overlaid the ATM pulls with hotel charges until the map looked childish in its honesty. Carlos's pen stopped. Let's, he started, then didn't finish. Step outside. No, Ruth said. We're finishing in sunlight. She turned to the mediator. We're seeking an emergency temporary restraining order on all accounts, exclusive use of the home pending full disclosure, injunctive relief against asset dissipation, and sanctions for forgery attempts. She faced Mark. You will provide an inventory of the box by 5 p.m. today, with photos, receipts, and provenance. You will produce landlord information for the extra unit. Mark tried outrage. This is a smear, he said. You're destroying a man for being unhappy. I'm destroying the habit of lying and calling it a life, I said, voice even, the way I speak to parents who whisper instead of admit. Ava looked at me full on for the first time. I'm sorry, she said. I thought I was special. I was the receipt. The mediator scribbled, then looked up like a man seeing weather for the first time. I'm calling the judge's clerk, he said. This appears urgent. Ruth nodded, already drafting. Lines that turn air into law. Diego emailed a spreadsheet titled Freeze. Carlos whispered to Mark. Mark stared at his hands, and then at me, and then at a version of himself that existed only in reflective surfaces. The door opened. A clerk stepped in with papers and an edge of hurry that felt like rescue. We signed nothing except the order that would stop his box from swallowing our future. Fallout is paperwork with teeth. The judge's emergency order froze transfers, barred safe deposit access without court supervision, and granted me temporary exclusive use of the house. Carlos sent a letter calling the order draconian, which is lawyer for we lost the easy part. Ruth filed notice with the bank and the boutique hotel. Priya taped the order inside the vault like a saint card. Diego filed preservation letters like life rafts. At school, I kept showing up because children still faint and parents still call, and the vaccine fridge still hums. Rumors reached the parking lot. Someone's cousin's hairstylist said I took him to the cleaners, as if cleaning were a crime. A PDA mom asked if I regretted going nuclear. I counted to 5 and said, I regret not studying my own bills earlier. She didn't like the mirror. Mark's business partner sent an email offering an off-book settlement if I withdrew all accusations. Ruth replied with a screenshot of the notary obituary and the word no. Ava sent Ruth a statement detailing gifts, memos, and that kitchen table audio. I'm done auditioning for breadcrumbs, she wrote. She blocked Mark and sent me a 2-word text. I'm sorry. I believed her more than I wanted to. That night, an ATM ping hit my phone. Attempted withdrawal at 9:14 p.m. Declined under the freeze. 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I watched through the camera as Mark stood on the porch holding lilies that looked like climate and guilt. I didn't open. He left the flowers and a note. You win. Is this what you wanted? I wanted integrity to feel less like court and more like a quiet dinner. I wanted different questions at 47. Ruth filed a motion for sanctions over the forged postnup. Carlos filed a motion to unfreeze reasonable living expenses. The judge set a hearing. I slept with the binder at the foot of the bed like a dog that bites only predators. My sister came over with takeout, and the only sentence I needed, "You're not crazy." We ate on the couch and watched a sitcom where men apologize in 22 minutes. The next morning, Diego texted a new overlay, storage unit paid in cash, opened under Mark's middle name. The unit address matched the landlord from the secret utility bills. We opened the storage unit under court supervision, a bailiff in a blue jacket watching like a metronome with a badge. Inside, shoe boxes labeled with months, a duffel with receipts, 2 watches, a camera, and a folder titled Post. The folder held versions of the postnup, iterations like drafts of a play never meant to open. Ruth photographed each page, saying, "Thank you," under her breath as if to a reluctant witness. Diego cataloged serial numbers like a man counting beads of light. Ava arrived with her own box, handbags with tags, a dental invoice, screenshots of promises both grand and puny. She looked at the watches and said, "He told me those were heirlooms. He bought them last month." The bailiff wrote it down. The judge later called the scene illustrative, which is court for, "You did the homework and brought pictures." Healing did not feel like a banner. It felt like smaller sounds. Changing passwords, moving my direct deposit, closing a credit line at noon, and feeling my pulse drop to human by 2. I booked a therapist and sat in a room with a rug that softened the idea of talking about 47 years of being the reasonable one. She said the words boundary and grief as if they were the same puzzle with different edges. Ruth negotiated temporary support and the sale of a car I never liked. She drafted a settlement proposal that did not confuse mercy with forgetting. Carlos argued. The judge nodded at arithmetic and said, "Produce what you were ordered to produce." I bought a lamp for the guest room and let the house learn my solo footsteps. Ava agreed to testify if needed. She sent me a message that said, "I'm not proud, but I'm not hiding." I replied, "Same. We didn't become friends. Exactly. We became survivors who don't have to share a story to share an exit." My sister and I made Sunday soup and didn't post it. The hearing date arrived with a forecast of rain and a stack of exhibits that finally felt like a backbone. Mark texted, "Can we talk privately before court?" And I typed no without shaking. Courtrooms smell like pencils and second chances. The judge listened to Ruth more than she listened to Carlos, which is a sentence I will frame in my mind for days. We presented the vault logs, the storage unit photos, the postnup forensics, the notary obituary, the Venmo hearts, the hotel robes pretending to be towels, and the audio where he promised to turn gifts into loans. "This is commingling and concealment," Ruth said. "This is coercion with fine print." The judge issued sanctions for the forged document attempt, continued the freeze, and set a schedule for equitable division that included my pension protected and the house mine until sale or settlement on terms I could sign without swallowing fire. Mark stared at a past he'd counted on and found missing. He did not say too old again. He said nothing. Ava sat in the back row, face bare, hands still. After, she touched my sleeve and whispered, "I won't let him reuse my silence." I nodded, which is how women clap for each other in rooms where applause would be mistaken for victory laps. Here's my advice, since we came here for a story and left with paperwork and breath. Read your statements. Screenshot your life. Label files like you'll need them when you're tired. Learn words that protect you. Commingling, marital property, separate property, mediation, injunction, and use them like umbrellas, not weapons. If someone says you're too old, ask how old a ledger is when it becomes honesty. Find a Ruth who speaks in documents and a Diego who translates charm into arithmetic. Practice the sentence, "Speak to my lawyer," like it's an inhaler. Accept that healing is boring and deserves confetti anyway. I still work in the clinic where kids stop shaking because someone steady shows up. I go home to a house that now exhales. I buy tulips that will die and a lamp that glows like a small, stubborn sun. I set a boundary list inside the pantry door and a soup pot on Sundays. I am not too old for anything that requires courage more than mirrors. If you were me, would you choose quiet comfort or loud, honest peace?